Hot take, I don't get the mild liners. I don't get it. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Rachel. Today we're going to be doing a quick pen test of some popular pens in the Hobonichi Japanese planner community, and we're going to be testing them on the old Tomoe River paper, which I have here on my Hobonichi Cousin, and the new Tomoe River paper, which I got a sample of in my Hobonichi 2023 order. You can see my full unboxing of that order up in the cards. I'll link it up there. But basically everyone who ordered, I think it was everyone who ordered a Cousin and an A6 and or an A6 size original planner got a sample of the new Tomoe River paper, which is called Sanzen Tomoe River paper, I believe. And this is what is going to be replacing the very much beloved Tomoe River paper in the 2024 planners. So the current launch 2023 has the old Tomoe River paper, and if you still want to get your hands on those planners, you can. They're up on sale on the Hobonichi website right now, on Amazon, on JetPens, all of those good things. But the new Tomoe River paper will be in the 2024 planners for at least the most of the Hobonichi planners, except I think the Weeks is going to take one more year to get the new Tomoe River paper, so it'll still have the old in 2024. So that's just a quick recap of what Hobonichi is doing, since I am testing based on a Hobonichi sample and the Hobonichi planner here. But Tomoe River paper appears in tons of different planners. It's in the Wonderland 222 planners. It's in Sterling Ink's upcoming Common Planner, which if you snagged that during the pre-order, I think the pre-order is over now, but I will be using that for 2023, and that does have the new Tomoe River paper, so I'm super excited about that. I think Midori's Traveler's Notebooks also has one insert that is a Tomoe River paper insert for those of you who use Traveler's Notebooks, and then there's a few other ones here and there that also use Tomoe River paper. Leave your favorite Tomoe River paper planners down below, and let me know if you're not using Hobonichi, what are the other brands doing? Are they also switching to Sanzen Tomoe River paper? I'm super curious. But anyways, this is going to be a pen test with the Hobonichi version. I think it will be applicable no matter what Tomoe River paper planner you are using, and I hope it gives you a lot of insight into how it performs. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be testing a few popular pens that I have collected as I have used the Tomoe River paper that I like on the Tomoe River paper and that I think the community likes on the Tomoe River paper. So we're going to be testing those out today and just comparing them and seeing how they perform. One quick note, this is not going to be, I'm not going to be testing any fountain pens. I do not use fountain pens, so I'm not going to be testing them. I don't have any. I'm not going to buy a bunch of fountain pens just for this video. There are so many people in the community who use fountain pens who have demonstrated how they perform on Tomoe River paper, and who I know will demonstrate how they perform on the new Tomoe River paper in the coming months and years. So I'm not going to be doing those. I'm just going to be doing some of the more like common gel pens and ballpoint pens, and then I'm going to be doing some of the community's sort of favorite like art pens. So if this video doesn't include a pen that you particularly like, please leave your own experiences with those pens down below so that everybody can share the knowledge and we can understand sort of what is going to work in these planners, whether old or new. So let's go over the pens. We're going to start with what I consider the writable pens in the Hobonichi Cousin. So these are the pens that I use to write in my Cousin, in my Weeks, in my other Tomoe River paper planners. I also have the Wonderland. So we're going to start with the writable pens, and then we're going to move on to these sort of like art pens slash highlighters that the community uses in a variety of different ways, whether that's to highlight, to draw, to make titles. Sometimes I've even seen people using like the Sigma or the Pigma Microns. Am I saying that right? Anyways, you guys recognize these pens, the Sakura Pigma Micron pens with archival ink. I've often seen people actually preferring this as their main writing tool, which is awesome for you if you like that. Personally, it's not my thing, but we're going to be testing a thin size in that, a thick size in that. You can see I have the Fudenosuke pens, both in the hard tip and soft tip. So we're going to be testing a couple different varieties of certain pens, but we're going to be testing all of these for how they bleed, how they ghost, and then for the writable pens, I'm going to be testing how they smear as well. So let's go over the writable pens first. The main one we're going to be testing is the Uniball Jetstream, and this is the 0.5 ink. I have it in a pen body that has 5 different tip types. So there is a black, a blue, a green, a red, and a pencil. I also have a mechanical pencil, so we're going to be testing all of those different 5 tip types on the Tomoe River paper. And this pen is the default pen that they give you when you order a Hobonichi. This is a different pen body, so the one that they give you when you order a Hobonichi, this is the 2023 one. It sort of looks like this. It only has black, blue, and red ink, but it is the same type of ink that I just have it in a different pen body. So it's the same type of ink, and we're going to be testing that out on the paper. I'm sure it will perform well. We're also going to be testing the Zebra Sarasa dry clip. This is one of the vintage colors. It's sort of the like light yellowy brown color. I know these are super, super popular. One other really popular pen type, I guess, is the Energel Clena pens. I have a 0.4 in black ink and a 0.5 in brown ink. We're going to be testing both of these as well. I know these are favorite gel pens of the community. We're going to be testing a Pilot Friction Clicker pen in 0.7. This is actually my first Pilot, and I don't really enjoy the writing experience necessarily with it. But I do know that the Pilot Friction pens are very popular in Japan is what I have heard. And I've heard that the new Tomoe River paper is designed to better handle these pens because it is more popular in Japan. So we're going to be testing it just to see how it performs, even though it's not my personal writing favorite. And then we're just going to be testing a regular pencil. Okay, so contenders for the art pen category. First up, we're going to be doing 2 different Tombows. We're going to be doing a slightly darker shade in 997 and a slightly lighter shade in 942. These are both really popular Tombow colors in the community, and I'm excited to test them out and see how they perform. Then we're going to be testing the Fudonosuke Tombow felt tip pens. These are in the soft tip and the hard tip. My personal favorite is the soft tip. I know a lot of people hold a candle for the hard tip. We're going to be testing both of these. We're going to be doing the Sakura Pigma Micron pens, like I said, one in 0.8, so a thicker size, one in 0.1, so a thinner size. I have the full set, but I'm just going to be doing these 2 so you can kind of get an idea of how the ink responds, whether it's thin or thick. These pens perform really well under watercolor. I'm not going to be doing a lot of highlighting over the pens today, but they're awesome. They perform really well with like highlighters and Tombows if you use them as highlighters as well. Then we have the Fude Touch Brush Sign Pen. This one is in the color brown. I actually just picked these up, and this is like one of my all-time favorite pens for headers in my planners and stuff like that. So we're gonna be testing this. And then I have a couple of highlighters. Number 1, the Pilot Friction highlighter, and number 2, the mild liner. I don't really use highlighters in my planners. I find that my Tombows get the job done and I don't need highlighters. I'm not highlighting things actively. I like the Pilot Friction ones because they're erasable. When I was in school, I used these in textbooks and stuff like that. But I bought a mild liner on a whim a couple of months ago just to test it out, and I don't get it. I do not get the hype. I don't get it at all. But people really like these, so we are going to be doing a test. Okay, I'm going to set up the testing platform, and I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, this is my testing platform. As you can see, what I've gone ahead and done is cut the sample in half. So this ordinarily folds out with 4 sheets, and I've cut it in half, and I've taped it down inside the cousin. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to test the feel of the pens and the performance of the paper in sort of a standard notebook feel. So I'm not using a pencil board or anything like that to make the surface hard, and I'm not testing like the new Tomoe River paper on the desk and this in the cousin. I wanted it to perform the same, like have the same sort of soft paper background. So that's why I've taped it in, and I'm going to be unfurling this at the end so we can see how it like bleeds and smears and stuff like that. So let's start with the writing pens. Let's start with the Uniball Jetstream. Okay, we're moving on to the Energel Clenas. We're gonna try the 0.5 first and then the 0.4. Now the 0.4. Now we're going to be doing the Zebra Sarasa Dry 0.5. And the Pilot Friction. And now we're going to try some pencils. So this is a mechanical pencil. I'm not going to do a smear test with the pencils, obviously. Okay, so this has been my test of the sort of more writable pens, as I refer to them. Yeah, this was really interesting. And what I have sort of noticed is that the new Tomoe River paper definitely handles the Pilot Friction ball clicker better. You can see with the smear test that 1 second obviously is gone, but 5 seconds there's only just a little bit of smear, and then 10 seconds you're good to go. Whereas on the old Tomoe River paper, 1 second is just completely gone. 5 seconds is still, it's not really quite absorbing, and then 10 seconds is fine. I was really interested to see the different performances of the Zebra Sarasa and the Energel Clena. So the Energel Clena seems to also absorb a lot better into the new Tomoe River paper. You can see the 5 and 10 seconds here are still legible, and the 5 seconds here is just like not. I think I must have pressed a little bit too hard on the 10 seconds over here because it is worse than it smears more than the 5 seconds, which I'm not sure how that happened, so maybe that was a fluke. But at the very least, you can see that the 1 second difference is quite significant, and the 5 second difference is quite significant there. So that's pretty interesting, I think. Pretty interesting. And then the 0.4 also had sort of the 10 second smeared a little bit more than the 1 second and the 5 second, which I was pretty surprised about. So I think maybe my Energel Clenas are kind of not the greatest. I guess maybe I got flukes. But either way, I think it still does absorb into this new Tomoe River paper a little bit better. Obviously, the Uniball Jetstream performs very well. I didn't test any other ballpoint pens on this paper because I think most ballpoint pens are going to perform the same, and the Uniball Jetstream is the one that they give you if you buy a planner. So I didn't test any other ballpoint pens. Please leave your ballpoint pen recommendations down below. I'm sure people who love ballpoints like I do would love to see them, but I've liked the Uniball Jetstream ever since I started using it. I think it's the most high quality ballpoint pen that I've used. And I know from experience that most other ballpoint pens, with the exception of like any that sort of like the ink distribution is not even or is leaking, they're gonna perform just fine, maybe with slightly more skipping on the Tomoe River paper. But the Uniball Jetstream looks great, is great. I love this pen. Interesting pencil experience. I liked writing with the pencil much more on the new Tomoe River paper. I do not like writing with pencil on the old Tomoe River paper. I've never really used pencil in my planners, if I can help it, that have the Tomoe River paper, because it's just not a fun writing experience. I don't really think I'm a mechanical pencil girl anymore. I definitely used to be, but I did like the experience with both pencils writing more on the new Tomoe River paper. Quick look at ghosting and bleeding as well. So now I have moved the new Tomoe River paper over here so you can see it in comparison with the old. I understand it is kind of hard to tell because the new Tomoe River paper does have this print on the back, but the ghosting I think is pretty much the same. I don't see any meaningful difference in the ghosting, except maybe it looks slightly like there's slightly more clarity here, but I think that may just be because of the print. So slightly different, but really nothing meaningful, and then nothing bled, which I pretty much expected. I use all these pens in my planner and none of them bleed, because if they did, I wouldn't use them. So yeah, so looking pretty good. All right, so now we are going to test the art pens. Let's start with the Fudonosuke pens. And now the hard tip. Okay, already interesting. I will save my comments for later, but very interesting so far. Now we're gonna go with the Fude Touch Brush Sign Pen in brown. Interesting. Now we're gonna test a couple of Tombows. Just gonna quickly blend these two together and see how it performs. Okay. Now let's test the microns. So this is the 0.1. Sorry, that should just say 0.1. And now we're testing the 0.8. And now we'll do a couple of highlighters. This is the Pilot Friction erasable highlighter. And this is the mild liner. I think the shade is it's a red shade. I'm not sure exactly what shade it is, but it's kind of like a corally red. Okay, super interesting experience with the brush pens and art pens and highlighters. Let's start from the top. Okay, so the Fudonosuke, I definitely felt, writing with the Fudonosuke pens, and these are brush pens, I definitely felt what people have been saying about the new Tomoe River paper having more tooth. So tooth in paper basically just means it has a little bit more resistance on your pen, which can sometimes people really like that writing experience, sometimes people don't really like the writing experience. Generally, Tomoe River paper does not have like a lot of tooth. It's very smooth, as anybody who has used the planner will know. So this paper is still very smooth. I would not classify it as like a paper with like a ton of tooth, but I definitely felt what people were saying about this paper having just a little bit more resistance when I was writing with the Fudonosuke pens. My soft tip is also just slightly running out of ink, and I kind of felt like that was more noticeable on the new Tomoe River paper. I don't know, tell me what you think down below. Then I also noticed with the Fudonosuke brush sign pen the same thing, so there was a little bit more resistance on the new Tomoe River paper. I also just quickly did a smear test of the Fude Touch brush sign pen just because this pen is really wet when you lay it down on the page, unlike the Fudonosuke pens. And as you can see, it smeared just a crazy amount on the old paper and hardly at all on the new paper. I was laying down sort of the side of the brush over here, so that might have something to do with it, whereas this was more the tip. But I really think this is a good sign, along with all the stuff we saw with the gel pens earlier, that this paper, the new paper, is much more absorbent. So if you're worried about smearing, that is a really, really good sign. If you're left-handed, that might be a really good sign. One interesting thing was the Tombows, which I was actually really disappointed about how the new paper performed. I think generally I'm a fan of the new paper, but it performed kind of not as good, which I'm really upset about. So what I did with the Tombows was I laid out one stripe of color and then I layered it over a couple of times on the first half, and I did the same thing on the old paper. And then I blended them together using one of the sort of water-based Tombow pens that they give you when you buy sets and things like that. And you can see the colors are more vibrant over here in the blend, but they blended slightly better over here on the old Tomoe River paper, which, like I said, has a little bit less tooth, is slightly more smooth. So I think the watercolor nature, or the water of the Tombow pens, sits on top of the paper for longer and better if you want to be blending out colors and doing a lot of artwork like that. And what I was really disappointed about, I'm not sure if you can really see it, but there's like little flakes the paper just sort of started flaking on me when I was making my blending palette over here. So yeah, there's like just kind of little flakes of Tomoe river paper that came off when it was exposed to water, which is disappointing, honestly. So that was a bummer. For anyone who likes to use Tombows and to blend them a lot, or to really highlight over them and to stack them on top of each other, I think that will be more difficult in the new Tomoe river paper. The Sakura Pigment microns were totally fine. I did feel the tooth a little bit more on this one than I did on the old one when I was writing with them, but it wasn't a deal breaker for me. I thought it was a fine writing experience all the same. And then the highlighters I felt like were exactly the same. With the mild liner, you can kind of see here a little bit that the ink is just absorbing really fast, so it kind of skipped slightly. Like, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's very faint, that there's just like a little bit of white showing through from the paper on the new Tomoe river paper. But it does the same thing that I don't like about the microns, which it has this sort of like, it pools at the end, and it did that on both papers, so nothing new there. Let's check out the back and see if anything bled. No bleeding from the new Tomoe river paper, which is great. And no bleeding from the old, which is to be expected. And then the reverse, I can slightly see, is coming through slightly stronger on this. So the ghosting is slightly stronger on the old Tomoe river paper as opposed to the new Tomoe river paper. Just a little bit with the darker colors. But the warping... The warping is slightly worse on the new one, so I'm not sure if you can see that, but yeah, it's slightly worse. Okay, so that concludes the pen test in the new versus old Tomoe river paper. If you guys didn't see a pen that you like to use here, leave it down below. If I have it, I still have a couple of extra sheets of the old Tomoe river paper, so I will test it out, probably post it on Instagram at some point. If you guys want to leave those recommendations down below, let me know, and if I have the pen, I will test it. But this basically is a good test of all of the pens that I use on a regular basis. And I think the new performed pretty well. I don't do a lot of artwork in my planners and stuff, at least as of right now. And even if I did, I prefer to draw with like a ballpoint pen or a Sakura Pigment micron, so or a pencil. So it's not going to be that big of a deal for me. If you really like watercolors or using Tombows and blending Tombows, I recommend doing thorough testing, because I do think that this paper, the new Tomoe river paper, is slightly more absorbent, has slightly more tooth, and you may run into some issues with fraying of the paper, like I did, or even fraying of your brush pens, since I know paper with a little bit more tooth can tend to do that to brush pens. So just keep that in mind when you're buying planners. Like I said, if you want to try the old Tomoe river paper, Hobonichi still has their entire 2023 lineup in the old Tomoe river paper. Next year, I will be using both planners with old Tomoe river paper and new Tomoe river paper. My Hobonichis that I bought all have the old Tomoe river paper, but the Sterling Ink common planner, which I did get on pre-order. Unfortunately, the pre-order is now closed, but that planner I got on pre-order, and it is the new Sanzen Tomoe river paper, which I'm very excited to see how it works. But yeah, in general, final thoughts, it definitely is more absorbent. It definitely has a little bit more tooth. As I'm feeling it, it's still very thin, although I would say slightly, just like very slightly thicker than the old Tomoe river paper, and I think it performs pretty well. For general writing experience, if you're just a casual user, I do not think you will notice any difference. I really don't, with the exception of the new Tomoe river paper, slightly better handling gel pens and definitely better handling the Pilot Friction Ball Clicker. But if you're just a casual user, you're probably not going to notice a difference, and it's probably going to be fine. Okay, that was the video. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, subscribing, sticking around, hanging out with me. I really, really love this space. So leave your own comments, pen tests, pen favorites, and likes, dislikes about the new Tomoe river paper in the comments. Let me know what you think. I'd love to chat. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.